Well, welcome everyone to the earliest session. I'll probably not say on the East of History, but at least in this meeting, 8 in the morning. Thanks for joining the session today. And Dave and I are running the session today. Really want to focus on inviting everyone to contribute and curate some resources and data for Wi-Fi related activities. And just get everything started. For online participants, please mute yourself if you're not talking. And also with ESIP, there's a participation guideline for all the participants. Please follow the guideline, and if you feel uncomfortable or being violated based on the description on the guideline, please let one of the session organizer, one of us know, or the ESIP staff know. And we invite everyone to contribute to the Notes doc, Google Doc, which is this QR code. You can scan, or it's also linked. I believe it's also linked on the sketch page. Yeah. So for the use of Wildfire. Wildlife would be nice. For the use of Wildfire cluster, we have been we started it early this year, trying to carry on from some activities from disaster lifecycle that has been doing some discussion related to wildfire, but I believe disaster lifecycle won't be more overall in general, not just focused on specific disaster types. So that's where the wildfire cluster naturally spin off from the disaster lifecycle cluster. Sorry, it's still early in the morning. And my coffee still haven't kicked in yet. So we are almost 6 months old for this cluster, and we have been talking with different agencies, inviting agencies to provide their perspective and their services on the data and tools to support different aspects of the wildfire management and activities. Okay, so at this moment, we're going to try to do some Slido, and I'm going to kick. Okay. Let's see if this works this time. All right, apparently it did not work. Or you can just go into, okay. I expected this might happen, so we have a different tab we can share. There we go. So if you want, just scan QR code or go to slido.com and use the code wildfires. And we have 3 questions to go through while we're waiting more people to join the session. And so, wait, the voting should not be closed. You should be able to use the Slido poll to enter some short phrases of how have wildfires affected you. Thinking about, we're always joking, until the fire hit the East Coast, no politician will pay too much attention to wildfires. I guess the Canadian fire, it's a good example. When the air quality hits New York City and Washington, D.C., everyone is talking about wildfires and what things that people can do. AQI, we see a lot of people talking about air quality. I think that's fair, because just on Tuesday we had a air quality alert or warning from different places for Burlington specifically. Weather impacts, road closures, thick smoke, fire close to my home, which is scary, and I have a few friends that experienced that, the Marshall fire in Colorado that time. Great. Okay, give it another 30 seconds. You still see someone's typing? Busier tracking them. Oh, hi, Dave. Health. Okay, cool. Thanks for all that. And we're gonna see, let's see if we can go to next one, next poll, which is asking the question, where do you usually find information about wildfires? Mastodon, okay. Local news station, it's a fair answer as well. There's no shame of putting news station into it. Weather apps, GovMap, news, workplace Slack, local media. MTBS, which is a professional answer. I know. I can guess who put that answer in. Noah Cloud GIS. Firms, I guess, not frames. Yeah, we got the firms already up there. Jibas. Okay, cool. NIFC, okay, National Interagency Fire Center. Social media. Sounds like it's a quite common thing, people finding out those informations on social media for the fire or those high impact events. All right, and we have one last poll. Well, I see. Okay, well, one last poll before we get the entire crowd oriented for the session today. Is that what Wi-Fi information interests you the most? So you can, for people who just joined, you can use the QR code for the Slido, or you go to slido.com, use the code Wildfires. Fire perimeters, we got some really techy crowd, early detection, real-time spreads, extent, air quality, aftermath of the fire, hotspot detection, impacts. For people who are looking at impacts, so would encourage you to be more specific in the Slido poll if possible. Hotspot detection is quite economic and social impacts. Post-fire erosion of the soil, spread rates, erosion, climate change. Interesting. Aftermath. Okay. Let's give another 30 seconds, and I think we're going to keep this last poll open. Anyone can just keep adding things for people who join later. Two more people typing. Okay, yeah, and so this is word cloud that we're gonna come back to quite often in our cluster in the next 6 months, as well as our curation activities later for today. And with that, I'm gonna go back to my slides and gonna jump here. I'm gonna turn it over to Dave, and he's gonna show you, well, probably not here yet, but this YouTube video. Right.
Thanks, Douglas, and good morning, everybody. Thanks for getting up early. I was saying to Douglas, I think this is the earliest session in ESIP history. If you don't consider having to connect with Australia in some form or fashion, late at night or early in the morning. As Douglas mentioned at the kickoff of the meeting, we have evolved the wildfire cluster from the disaster lifecycle cluster. So we spent quite a bit of time focusing on wildfires, and then we figured out, hey, there's so much interest in wildfires, we should launch the wildfire cluster and keep the disaster lifecycle cluster going so we can open that up to additional disasters. And so why are we here at the wildfire cluster? Last week, I had the opportunity to monitor a House committee meeting, a full House committee meeting on science, technology, and space. And this is just a short clip that I took and edited because it shows what Congress does or doesn't know about data. So let's take a look at this. Bless you.
Let me just get one more quick question for anybody who has an answer. The Wildlife Fire Risk Reduction Act is being reintroduced, and it asks the federal government to play a coordinating role. I was at a very interesting discussion at NASA Ames several months ago with federal agencies, local agencies, academic, including San Jose State, as well as private sector. And one of the issues that they identified was that we don't really have a way to distribute even the data that we have, put aside the data that we're missing. Do you have thoughts on how we might better coordinate the distribution and the standards for which the data is distributed? Any of you?
Sure, I think federal collaboration on development of new standards for, and data platforms for the distribution of this data is very important. A lot of that's happening at the state level right now. I think that's a place where NOAA could do very well to build some new platforms and data standards around that type of information, because there's really not a federal standard for that currently.
So let me stop this before we get out into any.
Okay, I guess we just
Okay. So basically that question from the Congresswoman is, we don't even know how to distribute the data we have, which kind of rubbed me the wrong way because there's a lot of efforts going on to distribute and make available federal data sets that are being collected. It's been a law for a long time, since the Geospatial Data Act. And the person who answered was the CEO of a private sector company who was obviously unaware of some of the activities that are going on. And so I took this clip, I forwarded it to Susan, the executive director of ESIP, and said, this could be a role that ESIP plays to follow up from discussions like this and further educates Congress about what's happening and what kind of activity and efforts are going on within the ESIP Federation, which stretches across multiple organizations. And so the big question was, do you have thoughts on how we might better coordinate the distribution and standards on which the data is distributed? There's a link I put in the PowerPoint here where you can watch the entire committee meeting and gather additional information. And that's kind of what this session is about. We really want to identify trusted data sets that can be put towards pre-wildfire activities, during wildfire activities, and post-wildfire activities. And that's why we have the room divided up here. And so as we get to that point in the room, we really do want you all to roll up your sleeves and dive into what kind of web services can you find, and we can identify those. And then we can start to put those data sets into the ESIP ecosystem of innovation to really evaluate them and see if they are there and they're going to stay there and they're trustworthy, and we can put them out to decision makers. And so that's what we're going to do with the session and the agenda today is just have an icebreaker activity, have a session overview, and then have some idea pitching for about 10 minutes for online attendees, we're going to use a Jamboard, but we can put sticky, I think we have do we have the sticky notes that we're going to put on the, I saw on the back, I saw the markers back there. But anyway, just come up with locations of data sets. We want to look at the U.S. Forest Service. We want to look at at NOAA, at NASA, what data sets are available that work as web services. We don't want links to NetCDF files. You know, we don't want links to large data sets that are going to be very difficult to share. And then we'll have a little sense making for online attendees using the Jamboard, and then kind of a soapbox sharing soapbox. So
I'm hungry when it's making that.
Douglas was hungry when he was making this slide. And then a little group work on curating data and resources. So it's going to be kind of a free-flowing session, but we really do want to dive into what data sets do you use, what do you access. If you just have no idea and you want to find out where a wildfire is, what would you do? Because even though we're a little bit more comfortable with searching for data, the public is going to do the same thing. They're going to Google data on a fire, and they won't even know if that's a current fire or the fire perimeter has been updated or things like that. So that's what we want to, then we'll share out and talk about next steps. And at the end of this, I will share how you can get more involved with the wildfire cluster, join the mailing list. We have monthly meetings. And so this is how we did our evolution in 2020 to 2022. We had the disaster life cycle cluster. January of 2023, we talked about, well, before that, we talked about California burning and identifying trusted data sets. In January of 23, we launched the ESIP wildfire cluster. And through the ESIP wildfire cluster, we've been inviting agencies to come in and brief us on what they're doing within the wildfire space. So we've had NASA, we've had NOAA, we've had the U.S. Forest Service, Everett Hinckley, who is the Geospatial Information Officer for the Forest Service. And then in the late summer and fall, we're going to have the National Weather Service come in because they're formulating their new services that they're going to have available, that'll be available via web services that you can pull into your own system. And we're also going to have USGS brief us on their wildland fire activities and data that they have. And so then, you know, here we are in July of 2023, we want to do community curation of data. And so this, you heard me mention the ESIP ecosystem of innovation. What is that? Well, it's a way in which we can work with other ESIP clusters and any ESIP members who may have interesting data that they want to share and put into the wildfire cluster here, or even in the disaster lifecycle cluster. So if you're working on a project and your job is to create maybe some AI, and that output is in a web service that can go over a map, that's something you can bring to us and say, hey, I'd like to test this just to see how it works. Then we have all these fingers out of the wildfire cluster and the disaster lifecycle cluster where we can test it with the All Hazards Consortium, for example, which is an organization which has 45,000 members. Those members include state emergency managers, FEMA, DHS, the food, fuel, transportation, medical supply, logistics, and energy sectors, those private sectors that need more weather and environmental information so they can help make their operations more efficient, so they can respond better and quicker to disasters that are developing. And it's a way in which ESIP as a whole can just come in and say, hey, we're working on this. I'm a student working on my PhD, or I'm working in this lab, or we're in a private sector company and we want to see if this might be helpful. So we can actually deliver real value by putting different products in front of decision makers and potential users. So this is an example of bringing in multiple data layers. This is the GeoCollaborate dashboard. where you can see the National Weather Service watches, warnings, and advisories as one layer. The letters in the middle of the country and over on the East Coast and even on the West, they're storm reports of wind, hail, and flood. And those reports come in real time. That's a different layer. And then there's an interface built into the Socioeconomic Data Application Center, CDAC, Bob Chen's group, which is a NASA DAC, where you can just draw a circle around any area in the country or the world, and it will go to CDAC immediately as a service and pull out the population and give you that population information shown as this graph on the right-hand side, which comes back with population from 2000 through 2020, how much land area was selected. All of that is done through web services. You don't have to have your own application. And so post-wildfire threats, we talked about chemicals from wildfires ending up in water supplies, causing lots of problems. And we also have the issue of quick runoff, debris flows, mud flows that form because the hydrophobicity of the soil changes in wildfires. And it depends on how intense that wildfire is as to how the soil changes. So, you know, as a community of ESIP and Earth Science Information Partners, how can we support the broad community to understand, prepare, monitor, and respond to the increasing frequency and intensity of wildfires? This was a recent example from New York City, and you can just see how quickly the air quality goes down. So one of the inputs we had during one of our wildfire sessions was, what are the key challenges to proactive wildfire management and research development that require data synergies across agencies? So we want to really take a look at how can we leverage what agencies are doing, how can we share that information across agencies, because I think we've seen it already here at ESIP. Each agency is doing their thing and doing it at their pace, right? Some of them are pretty far behind in getting their data all ready to go. Others are more advanced because they've been doing it for a long time. But ESIP can fill a gap. We can really help advance what some of the agencies are trying to do. And so what are needed? What synergies across agencies are needed to provide value-added analytics? It may include AI, may not include AI. AI is sort of a buzzword now, and it's really getting integrated into a lot of things these days, and there's a lot of caution being applied to it. So I'll turn it back over to Douglas so he can talk about the agenda and what we'll be doing. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Like Dave said, we're going to do a lot of walking around and then doing, well, I guess if it's only 10 people in the room, we don't need to be too concerned about too crowded. So we can bring the board a little bit closer. So less walking if you prefer to sit down, okay? So yes, Dave, if you can move things around to maybe to the, like by the hallway in the middle of this room would be helpful. And so we have 4 specific topics we want people to bring your ideas to the group, and then we'll have some more like working session on curating those resources. So like Dave mentioned, really separating into different stages of fire events, from pre-fire to during fire and post-fire. And I believe this slide, like Dave showing, was the skyline during the Canadian wildfire when the smoke is coming down to the east coast of the US, and then you can see the significant change of the air quality and then how you view the skyline. And what we are doing here is really to providing those like informations that you have and what people may need to. So the first stage would be the idea pitching, which in the next 10 minutes, we invite you to limit things to, do not limit things to and so basically thinking about the information and resources that you need or you want to see for those different topics like pre-fire, during fire, post-fire, and we specifically add ones education and outreach, because in the past, we have heard a lot of people saying, where do we find the resources to do the education outreach related to wildfire? So that's why we have another specific section about education and outreach. So that was that. I want to invite everyone to, at this moment, it's only doing your own like thinking and then adding ideas. So there's no talking. So just an individual solidarity and putting the ideas and topics in it. Well, given that we only have like 10 people in the room, maybe we can just everyone using the Jamboard if that's okay, because now we can level the playing field for the online participants. And so the Jamboard is linked on the Google Doc for the session. So if you want to navigate to the Google Doc, which is a QR code, there's a QR code on it. Or it's on the sketch page, right? Okay, yeah. So the 10 minutes counting, it's there. So let me show what the Jamboard looks like here. The first page is for the newcomers who haven't used the Jamboard before, how you add sticky notes or other information on the Jamboard. And if you navigate to each individual page, that's where you will find for different topics like data and resources for pre-fire, for during fire, for post-fire, and for education outreach. So you just need to navigate to different pages. Right. We see like 3 anonymous people in the Jamboard at this moment. Hopefully we can see more. Yeah, leave them all in the main room right at this point. Yeah. Anonymous Cormorant, anonymous Loris. Yep. There's a link to the notes document and also where you'll find the link to the Jamboard. Here said, do not limit what you already know. Like, do not just say firms or do not just say any of those like web services, but things that you want to see. Did someone just put stack in all the places? Is everyone fine getting into the Jamboard? Network is slow? Huh. Karen, it should be on the sketch page now, the link. Mhm. All right, we're gonna give it another 4-5 minutes. For people who put fire risk, I would encourage you to maybe let a little bit more detail of what fire risk you're saying in the sticky notes, if possible. There's some interesting suggestions. Evacuation routes by community. All right, we're gonna give it 2 more minutes, and then we're gonna split the room into 2 groups for some of the discussion, refinement of some of those ideas and feedbacks on that. All right, I think I'm now gonna split the room into 2 groups, using the hallway as a separation line. The 4 of you, if you don't mind maybe having discussion about the 2 later topics, post-fire and education outreach related activities, or the sticky notes on there. And if you see any gaps there, like ads or like provide feedback using the sticky notes or comments like for that. And for 4 of you on this side, I would like you to just review the things on the first 2 topics, pre-fire and the during fire topic, and then online they can review everything. Yeah, I think there are 3 people online. You're gonna go into a group breakout rooms. You can just go through all the 4 topics to see if you have any feedback or suggestions you want to add to those like Jamboards. And before you get into discussion, make sure you introduce yourself to others. 10 minutes also. All right, I think I'm gonna bring the breakout room online back, and then let's everyone in the room wrap up the conversation in 1 minute as well. Yeah, close it. All right, I think we have the online participant back in the main room, so we're gonna just do a quick, like, around room checking. So for people online, anything you want to share during the discussion that you find interesting or missing in the Jamboard? Let's see if anyone wants to speak online. Feel free to unmute yourself. I heard someone on mute. So, what? Patty?
Oh, yep. I guess I was still unmuted from the session, but yeah, our discussion kind of just centered around standardization of data. So we were mostly talking about the let's see, the during fire monitoring and response, and I think the accumulation of data between organizations is really crucial in terms of standardizing the data, so that it can be, easily ingested and disseminated and things like that. So that was the main focus of our discussion.
Great, thanks, Patty.
Mhm.
There's a question in the room for you. Wait 1 second.
Hi, Patty. It's Dave Jones. I was just wondering if I could pull that thread a little bit more when you talk about standardization of data. What do you mean by standardization? Can you get any more specific?
Well, hopefully Teddy can unmute and speak up. This was actually his point of focus.
Hi, this is Teddy. It's actually she, her. But so the standardization problem we most recently ran into, I work as the curator for EONet, and I saw someone mentioned EONet. INSEEWeb just recently changed, this is an example of standardization, just changed how they post their location data. So they went from the word I want, decimal latitude and longitude to a degree, minute, second one. And so all of our processes broke, and we started putting fires in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean because, our automated process doesn't realize that that has changed. So having and delivering some standardized version that we can all agree on, this is how it's going to be, so that when we use a machine reader to read this data, we always get consistent results.
Right, thanks, Patty.
And Teddy, that was great information. And I'm just wondering if INSEEWeb I guess they didn't issue any change notice for what they're doing?
I have not seen anything from them yet about that. And they've also changed how they put the name of the fire in the metadata for the page. Where they're putting a code, I'm sorry, I have some big trucks going by the house, where they're putting in some code, internal code with the state abbreviated, and then some letters to indicate the agency that's providing them the information. So all of the fire names in EONet started to change as well.
Right.
No, I haven't seen any, and I haven't seen any change notice.
Right. Thanks, Teddy, for the information. I think for the sake of time, maybe we should just go around the room. There were two groups in the room. I'm gonna go with the first group here. Anyone want to just briefly summarize the discussion that you had here? I'm not part of it.
Well, yeah. Okay. We talked about a lot of points, really. We talked one thing that we just were wrapping up with was the importance of having both kind of a rapid access to data, so that incident commanders or whoever are managing these situations can have as close to real-time information as possible. But on the other side of that, we need the raw, kind of really corrected data, so that academics or it's kind of more research-oriented groups, have that kind of really fine-grained and accurate information to do analysis that can contribute to better products in the future. So those are some of the. I think that was or at least the last point that we hit on that I think was really striking.
Thanks. This group, go with the nearest neighbor. Stephanie, do you want? No, that's fair. Who wants to, just a quick summary? All right, Bob.
We only really had time to work on the last one. I think we only had a chance really to work on the last slide on data and resources for education and outreach. And I think, there were, we tried to group the different suggestions, and, I think they did group fairly well. And we've tried to put little titles on them to kind of capture the overall theme. There's clearly a set of materials that can be used for education and outreach, and we've kind of grouped them into the materials that can be used for public information, for giving people interactive experience or broader access to the range of data. There some things that are more focused on the preparedness side and the risk side, and then the response side. So given the I'm sure it could be expanded a lot if there were more time and people involved. And we really didn't, on the post-fire recovery and response, there are a few different areas we haven't really finished characterizing them.
That's great, Bob. Thanks. One of the things I wanted to mention too is that this discussion, while it starts here at the summer meeting, can continue through our monthly calls that we have within the Wildfire cluster. So this isn't something that we just have to figure out today, but as you go through the day and you go through your travels, and you might be sitting at home thinking, I really need this kind of information when it deals with wildfires. Or if I'm working in the agricultural area, I really need this. And we want you to add to these Jamboards, right? These Jamboards aren't going to go away. So you can log on and add some things tonight or next week or next month. But we want to use this to really build upon what can we talk about, and then we can work these data needs backwards and say, okay, who provides this data? Oh, it's the Forest Service. Let's talk to Everett Hinckley at the U.S. Forest Service and the Geospatial Management Office and see if we can get that kind of data available. And he might say, well, it is available, but it's behind a token or it's behind a firewall. Let's see if we can't make that public. And so we can really make a difference here by putting our heads together and identifying specific products or needs that we might have. Oh, sorry, I was blocking the camera with my eye.
You're blocking yourself, so it's fine. So we have another activity, which is continuing some of the curation and discussion that we just had, which I would ask everyone go to the note document. So we have 4 topics and we only have 2 groups in the room. So pick whatever specific topic you want to tackle, or if you want to tackle both topics at the same time, spearheading different efforts, that's fine. So in the note document here, where you will find let's see, we have additional members joining. Hi, Kim on the line. And what we are doing right now is going to this like Google Docs, right? That there's a link on the note document that will link you to different places. So there's one document for the pre-fire, and then there's one document for during fire, and one document for post-fire, and one document for our education outreach. Where within this each document, that you will find that we have a table for curating the existing resources and data. You can add more things. I see already people adding in the sticky notes that adding the link to different places, and then briefly describe what's the existing resource and data. And there's also a section, say what other resource and data would be helpful that you are not aware or that's not exists yet. That would be a place where the cluster can, through the cluster, can make more people to provide input. Oh, this is information is already out there, but just like you don't know, we don't know that yet. So there's a 2 section of documents, and for each topic, where everyone we can still use those 2 groups to do that. And then for the online participants, I think we're gonna put you into the same breakout room again. So we have 3 people right now. So you can choose any topics you want, or if you want to do the pre-fire, during fire, or post-fire. So this activity will be 15 minutes. And so that we have more time for discussion, and then, or also like working together to get those information resources together. And like Dave mentioned, this will continue through the ESIP data, Wildfire cluster, where we're gonna use our monthly calls, as well as when we're talking with agency, asking them to provide briefs, so we can fill some of the gaps that the agency provided and then put them into these resources. And at the end of the year, we want to make that into a page through the ESIP, and then those information can be available to anyone who are interested in as a starting point to explore those resources and services. So that's just the charge for the next 15 minutes.
And I was just going to add, one of the things that we want to do when we get briefings from agencies on their wildfire activities is to come prepared to share the data services that they know exist and some of the things that they're working on. One in particular thing that I recognized earlier on this season was that we used to bring in the real-time fire perimeter data from the Forest Service, and now when you go to that link, it's behind a token. And so I'm not sure what's happening and where there is now some reliable fire perimeter data that can be accessed, that's updated. Last season, it was updated at least every 24 hours, if not more frequent. And so if we're going to be eventually connecting with communities, we want to be sharing trusted data sets that they know they can access and use for decision making.
So now you have your charge, and then just go back to the same group, and you can either choose one specific document to work on, or you can tackle both documents for each groups you want to work on. And for online, Mike will put you into a breakout room again, and then you can work on those things together as well.
And I would just add, even if they're test data sets that you might be looking at, put them in here. You know, we're not going to be, putting these in the New York Times. So there are things that we might want to test and say, hey, this is a great service. Can you put some more information in the metadata about it? Or how often is it updated? Things like that.
We have 5 more minutes. Surely we have more coffee coming.
You know, even if you're not sure of the web link to the data sets, if you say, I knew about this data set, I came across it, I saw it, just put it in there and we can do some research and try to find out where that data set might be.
We're in the last 2 minutes, so if you have any incomplete thoughts, it's time to wrap those up. All right, I think we're gonna get everyone back, and I believe the participants online should be back in 30 seconds. So. I think Patty's back. Great. Dave, do you want just a few things about next steps for the cluster?
Great. So we have the ESIP telecons, and we have these telecons every month. And these are some of the people we're going to invite to talk during our telecons in late summer and early fall. So the USGS Wildfire Program, the National Weather Service, NASA Applied Sciences Wildfire Program. We had them give us a little bit of a briefing when we kicked off the wildfire cluster in January. But now they've done some reorganization, and they have new priorities and things like that they're going to brief us on coming up, and other speakers. So if you have an interest in connecting with the wildfire cluster, please send us an email or some form of communication and say, hey, I'd love to talk. My agency would love to talk. We'd love to just get involved in the conversation. It's nothing that you're committing to long term. It's just that, hey, here's what we're thinking about doing, because the wildfire cluster has a lot of members and people signing up now that want to get involved. And so here's something for you to scan. This is if you want to join the mail list. So we send out information on the meeting, when it's happening, who we're going to be inviting to talk and things like that. So if you scan this, you can join that email list, and we will get notifications for approving you. And once you're in the list, then we're also tied into Slack. We have a ESIP Wildfire Slack channel where we pass information back and forth. Douglas and I are the co-chairs for the wildfire cluster, and there's also a link there for those of you online, or for those of you who just want to scan this QR code online with your phone or whatever and sign up. So the one thing we do with all of our notes, we keep a rolling Google Doc. I think all the clusters do this, where we take notes every meeting that we have. We put in resources, we record the session, we put a link to that recording into the Google Doc page so you can listen to it later at your leisure, and then you can come back in and add thoughts into the Google Doc. So you don't really have to be meeting during that time to add information into the Google Doc. But if you say, hey, I want my wildfire ideas to be in the wildfire cluster, you can just start to add those in, and that'll be, yes. Here you go.
Thank you. What about someone who's not an ESIP member, not connected, so the sessions would be open?
It's open.
That's brilliant. I'll send some people to you. Thank you.
Yes, it's open. You don't have to be an ESIP member. That was a great question, because this is open and inclusive, and we want to make sure we bring anyone interested in the wildfire space. And if they just got assigned to a wildfire project and they're like, I really am not sure what I want to do, we won't give them orders, but we could give them some guidance, and here's some things that we're working on that could be valuable. If you've just gotten involved in a project in your local area that involves wildfires, come to the wildfire cluster and say, hey, I just got asked to work on this wildfire project, and I'm really not sure where we might want to head or what kind of data we might want to use. That's what the ESIP Wildfire Cluster is about.
Yeah, in example, Mike was asking about some questions about wildfire data, and I just throw in some of the random links to him. So if you want to do the same thing on Slack, and that's another way to participate, you don't really, so it's really, you'll get out what you want to get out from it. It's all a volunteer and public groups that anyone can join.
Yeah, awesome. Any other questions of anybody in the room? We've come up on time. We really appreciate you participating online as well. It's early here. I think people are still maybe getting up, but it's a great. Thanks so much for participating, and enjoy the rest of ESIP today and
Right. Thanks, Mike, for the help for the session. And
yep, Mike, thank you.
Is your poster still up? People can still go walk and take a look. Okay.
Okay, thanks everybody online for participating. Hope to see you in other sessions today.